Hi. You're a sleepyhead, aren't you? This ought to do it.
Who are you?
Some people call me the best friend, but my real name is Christopher Andrew Eugene Bazioni at your service. But it's okay if you don't like it. Just call me Chris.
I'm drinking. I realize my favorite domestic beer
Dos Equis?
is Dos Equis.
Is that domestic?
Well, maybe domestic is the wrong word, but like normal beer.
Like Corona.
Normal beer. Yeah.
Like, it's a cheap, good beer, but then if you go to like a stadium, they'll be like imported beers.
Oh, right.
It's
Yeah,
like
the
Modelo.
Right.
It's like $19.
Exactly.
But yeah, I think Dos Equis is my favorite. I like the taste.
Yeah, that's a pretty big boy you got there.
Yeah, well, I got like a 3-pack of
Drinking
Tall
for
Boys. Yeah, hell yeah. But yeah.
You like it because it's your chromosomes?
No, that would have been called XXX.
That's your favorite movie.
Yeah.
Well, I'm drinking a Kirkland brand Côte d'Aron.
Wow.
Ooh.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that sounds damn good. I'm jealous.
Yep.
I'm sipping on a Coke Zero generously provided by my host here.
Yeah, I buy an 18-pack in advance of the podcast recordings
I
because
just come here.
me and Julian are going to go through
drink
them.
like 9 of them. I just come here and it's like an opium den, but Coke Zero, where I just sit back, have like 9 Coke Zeros. Then, wake up 3 days later, put on my business coat and go back to my family.
You put on 2 or
happened.
3 adult diapers and pull up a mini fridge.
Clock into the office Monday morning, pitch some advertisement ideas, and no one knows no one's the wiser.
Yeah, there's a lot that Julian and I get up to together before we go home to our wives and families the next day. Yeah, well, I sometimes, as you know, I'll drink like, when I'm at my worst, I'll drink like 4 to 6 Coke Zeros a day, but I've actually been starting the morning with coffee, with espresso specifically.
Nature's
so
Coke Zero.
So that cuts down on, that's like 2 or 3 zeros right there. So that sort of starts me off okay.
What's your espresso drink?
Oh, I'll make myself like a cappuccino. I have a little espresso machine.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, with some steamed milk. Julian, you kicked the vape?
We kicked the vape habit.
Wow.
I didn't know you had been vaping.
Oh, it was pretty bad.
He's been vaping.
Oh.
I've been vaping.
I've been vaping.
I've been vaping. But to kick the vape habit, I had to pick smoking back up. So
yeah,
and do that for a
well,
couple
fair.
days and then go back to being healthy. I swear I'll be healthy tomorrow.
I did one of Tom's Zins the other night, and it felt like being
Tom's
slapped in the
Zin.
face.
Those were painful.
Yeah, I find them to be like quite acidic and
Yeah. It felt like I was like put like ice 9 in my lip or something. I was just going to turn into like crystal and shatter.
Oh, those are the pouches you put in your bottom lip?
right.
Yeah.
And Tom had the 6. Now you can buy 3 milligram, 6 milligram, and I think in Europe he said you could buy 12. But he had the 6, which are already slightly bigger. Now, if you take in a lot of nicotine, that's fine to you. I do not have a nicotine habit, so that's a lot for me. But I tried it. I put it in my mouth for like 30 seconds. I was like, oh, that's fine. And then like another minute goes by, and like my body temperature rises, and my heart starts pounding, and like the saliva going down my throat is like stinging my throat. And I'm like, oh my god.
So. Zen is basically just snus. Apparently there's like it's pretty popular amongst professional athletes, like soccer players in Europe, because it's like an energy boost.
Sure.
I can't even fucking imagine putting in a Zen and playing like a sport. Sounds so
That's
horrible.
what baseball players do, right? They like dip and
That's
chew
not a
tobacco.
Yeah, but baseball, 90% of it is just standing in one spot while you
know.
wait for something to happen. If you do something athletic in baseball, it's lucky.
Yeah, good point. No, I saw the one picture I saw of when the Dodgers won the championship, like the one picture from the field, the player I saw with his shirt off waving it over his head. I was like, that is a professional athlete? No offense, but like that's like my body.
Hey, work smart, not hard.
Yeah, fair enough.
Well, similar to professional baseball, podcasting is an art form where you mostly stay in one place for the whole time, but you do need a lot of drugs to maintain it. So I can relate.
Would you say we're the rock stars of our time?
Yes.
First it was rock star. Well, first it was
I would
Jesus
say
Christ.
We're sort of hybrid rock star philosopher.
Yes. We're like the chefs of the 2010s.
Right. Right.
I buy it.
Listening to when you play your favorite podcast for a friend and it's just right. And 8 white guys laughing as hard as they possibly can.
And you say to your friend, it usually takes them a little bit to get into it.
You got to listen to like 8 or 9 episodes that are 3 hours long each.
Yeah.
That's what just happened with I just finished The Penguin. Did either of you watch that?
No, I will not be watching that.
Well,
everybody's watching
Ash. Here's the thing.
Everybody's watching that damn penguin.
I know neither of you are particularly care about superhero stuff, like
right,
in a big way. Not that either of you strongly dislike it.
Madam Web.
Yeah. Although, Ash, you're a big fan of Madam Web.
Madam Web, notable exception.
The Penguin show is just straight up a mafia show. It's just a mob show.
Yeah, I've been kind of curious about it just because it's so clearly like supposed to be just a show starring Tony Soprano.
Yes. Totally.
I don't really understand why that's. Do people like talk about that in the discourse that he's clearly just doing an impression of James Gandolfini?
It's more over the top than that. The way he's talking, it's like a comic booky version of Tony Soprano. But there's no like superhero stuff in it, huh?
Do they swear?
Oh yeah, they swear and murder people all the time, every episode.
Oh. And
anyway,
like
very
this?
dark stuff.
You
Stay
like
away
to
from
see
it.
this?
To quote Tony Soprano, that sounds very gay.
Well, I liked it, so
that's Scott's pick of
extrapolate
the
what
week.
you will.
Yeah, I'll
actually,
check
it's
it out.
not. It's actually not my pick of the week. The movie we watched is probably my pick of the week. Actually, I've been going.
Our pick of the week is.
I've still been going through that folk horror box set, and I watched one of the best.
Oh, that's right.
Maybe the best black magic movie I've seen this year. Within the past few days. So.
Wait, is this the Polish box set?
This is a folk horror box set, and the stuff in it is from all over the world.
Okay, because I thought you said you watched some Polish films from there.
Welsh movies, in fact, is what I was talking about last week.
Okay.
I sent them to Julian.
You were talking about Polish films, but it must not be
He
from
sent
this
me
box
his
set.
Welsh films.
How come I never got to see the Welsh films?
You have to ask.
You just have to ask.
When you realize your friends have a group chat behind your back talking about Welsh films.
Everybody's in it.
You don't want to be in that group
except for
chat.
you, I guess.
You really don't want to be in that.
Oh, no, we like you. It's just, we just didn't think you'd be into the Welsh films. Well,
we just assumed you hated whales for some reason.
Yeah.
Yeah, what's the one from the box set?
Sundell Belong or Ghost with Hole.
Ooh, I could go for some Ghost with Hole.
Ghost with Hole.
The said hole in the ghost is this like huge horrific wound in the ghost's back that's just like teeming with maggots.
Ew.
Yeah. And they show it like for the first shot of the movie. Like the main character turns around, it zooms in on her back, and then she just stands there as the whole opening credits show.
Whoa.
It was awesome.
You're
I
watching
loved
the
it.
movie and you're like, that must be the hole.
Yeah. Yeah.
Any
It's like,
port in a storm.
Spoilers.
Mm-hmm. Any hole in a ghost.
It's called The Hole in the Ghost. The
Ghost
the
with
a
hole.
Ghost with
Yeah.
hole.
The actual name is Sundel Bolong.
I see it.
Anyway,
Okay.
Indonesian movie.
Indonesian.
It was great. Loved it. Why was I talking
yeah.
about that? Oh, yeah, because you said Penguin was my pick of the week, and I said no.
You're presenting your actual pick of the week.
Right.
You got a pick of the week, Julian?
What did I watch? What have I done? Oh, you know what I watched? I watched The Heroic Trio.
Oh, that's a great
I watched
movie.
part of that on Criterion, but I was too sleepy to finish it. Did you like it?
I did.
love
It
that
was
movie.
Awesome.
Hmm.
Two of us
Yeah.
love that movie. I've been watching a bunch of Johnny Toe films,
Nice.
and I had not seen that one, and I really like his movies.
I feel like you wouldn't necessarily know that that's a Johnny Toe movie, like if you didn't know who the director was.
Very different from all the other ones that I've seen
Yeah.
of his, which is like his mid 2000s, early 2000s output. Like Throwdown was really awesome. So is PTU. And what was another one I watched? Who gives a shit? Look him up.
All that cool gangster stuff.
Yeah.
My picks of the week are that last night I rewatched American Psycho for like the fourth or fifth time in a year.
Nice.
Because it just makes me feel so good inside, and it's everything I want to be. But I think my actual pick of the week is that the new installment of the video game The Golden Idol came out today, and I am dying to get off this call with you guys so I can start playing it. The only video game I can really say that about. I love it so much. It's
So
just
exciting.
fantastic. It's a great mystery solving game. It's very fun. Well, shall we talk about our real pick of the week?
Yes.
Yeah. Let's do it. All right. Welcome back to Boys Bible Study. Just listen to our podcast. Don't worry. You won't be late for dinner. Just listen to it and we'll get you right back where you're supposed to be. This is our review of Joshua and the Promised Land, a very exciting animated film we're happy to share with you all. But as usual, Ash here with my co-hosts.
Scott.
Hey, I'm Julian.
We've decided to hire a narrator for this podcast. Sometimes we've had complaints from our listeners. They find it confusing just for three different people talking.
Mm-hmm.
They thought it would be helpful if there was sort of a best friend style character that had interjections that held everything together. So you might hear it say things like, and the rest of the crew didn't care for the penguin.
Yeah. According to the Bible, Ash is the guy God picked to do all his podcasting.
I thought one of the neat things about having that character was that they already had that character in the movie, and then they felt the need to have
A different one.
a different one to further explain.
Let's talk about the movie.
Yeah,
'Cause
let's do it. Again, this is a DIY animated film. The title of it is Joshua and the Promised Land. And the first thing I wanted to point out is that it does seem like this film has a bit of a cult following online.
Yeah.
From what I can tell, it seems to be sort of in the YouTube circles.
Yeah. The top comment on it is some popular animation YouTuber.
Yeah. I believe this guy's name is Saberspark. And I looked at his channel, and it seems like he narrates and discusses culture, mostly animation. And he sort of has this human avatar that's like a drawn cartoon character that does different poses, and he animates it. And
That's awesome.
Gotta be honest, I'm sure this I'm sure this person is, funny or charming in some way, but that's the opposite of something I would ever want to watch. I will never watch this video. It's just not what I'm into. I'm I'm a podcast guy through and through, and like the YouTube video essay style of like analyzation and curation just does not sit with me for some reason.
It's okay to be a child and like cartoons, but at a certain time you have to grow up. You really, really have to grow up. And I hope some of my closest friends in my life listen to this. At a certain point, it's time to grow up and stop watching and talking critically about children's cartoons.
Well, actually, Julian, what you just said reminds me of a Bible verse. And it's 1 Corinthians 13:11. When I was a child, I talked like a child. I thought like a child. I reasoned like a child. When I became a man, I put the ways of childhood behind me.
When I became a man, I realized Steven Universe is actually about being bisexual. And Over the Garden Wall is about depression.
Wow, that horse is really sad. Cool.
It's funny because I was watching this very film.
Yes.
An animated film. And the voice acting in it is very memorable.
Hell yeah.
Perhaps because it's a very understated performance by most of the voice actors. But it like reminded me of watching like a fucking adult animation show. That's just how people talk in cartoons now.
It was so ahead of its time. Yeah. I honestly, it's going to sound like, somewhat ironic or contrarian, but I honestly have mostly praise for this cartoon. I think Scott does too, based on the tone of his text to us last night. I really liked this. And not only was it entertaining and like predicted trends in animation in the 2020s, I also think in a sort of accidentally understated way, it was like the perfect way to talk about the Bible.
Yeah.
Which I'll explain more of my reasoning soon.
It was awesome. I mean, Xavier, Renegade Angels, clearly influenced by this to a certain extent. Or at least things adjacent to this. It's like, and that show's really funny, but I feel like, if this came out now, it would be on like Adult Swim or something.
Right.
Like as a sincere project, it would be like very well received.
I agree.
And it was nice to like see this kind of animation and not a bunch of fucking hipster bullshit thrown in there to try to make you laugh.
Totally.
It's like weird character models and shit.
Movie was 2004. I don't know if we said that. 2004 when it came out. And yeah, actually, I did. As soon as I finished watching this, I watched an episode of Xavier Renegade Angel.
No, that's a good idea.
That's awesome.
While we're comparing it to other pieces of media, I've got to say, the first thing it reminded me of, Scott, was this animated film that you recommended me. Or no, I'm sorry. I think my friend Schwartz recommended it to me, and I passed it on to you. It's an animated film called Willie's Wife.
Yes. Schwartz was the one who recommended that, and I'm way into that as well.
By Kathleen Daniel, another like DIY 3D animator. That film is from 2017. Covers much different themes, but I mean, we're genuinely dealing here with the story of Joshua. Joshua in the Promised Land. We're dealing with an influential piece of contemporary animation that may have, without its knowledge or understanding of what it was going to do, may have influenced the course of like a whole genre of animated self-expression.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, Julian, we were talking about the video game LSD Dream Emulator and how that game basically influenced every like solo dev like Unity game made since the 2010s. It just looks like LSD Dream Emulator. And I think we sort of have that situation on our hands here with Joshua and the Promised Land.
Yeah.
It's just so ahead of its time.
It took us to the Promised Land as promised.
Sure did. But yeah, let's talk about this film. We've established it as a cult following, extensively covered by YouTube and TV tropes. That's where I learned a bunch of trivia about it. The director of this film is called Jim Lyon.
Do you think that's why it was all lions?
I feel like this was a furry pseudonym. I think Jim Lyon is possibly a guy who really likes lions and is fixated on them in some capacity. And that was why he made the executive decision to have all the Israelites in this film depicted as anthropomorphic lions walking on two legs.
Yeah. They looked awesome.
They look good.
Yeah. I really liked it. It was like watching a movie made in RuneScape or something. Something about their bodies, their anthropomorphized feline bodies was very satisfying to look at.
It was like cats, watching cats.
Yeah, very much
around
so.
like people.
Well, what is it? I mean, this is like the same compulsion that has driven a lot of human entertainment. And I'm not even saying this in a furry way, but, we humans, we love to see very simplistic, like anthropomorphized characters. Like this film succeeded in the way that like very simple comic strips do.
Yeah.
Because it was like reminiscent of something we were familiar in, but also the figures were so simple that it really allowed you as an audience member to project so much of your internal world into the characters. And I just think it accidentally really hit the sweet spot where like it was so simple that it was like it really activated the imagination.
Mm-hmm.
Like any more simple, it would have been unwatchable. But any more complicated, it would have also been unwatchable. And it was just right, in my opinion.
I think you're right. I think you nailed it there.
And cats, I mean, talking about anthropomorphized, like simplified animals in human shape walking on two legs. Cats was like the biggest musical ever.
Oh, yeah.
People love those damn cats.
Yeah. What's the Mr. Rumple stuff?
Something like that.
Mr. Mistopheles.
Mr. Mephistophelies.
There's Mr. Mistopheles. There's Rumple Teaser. There's Scrimbleshanks, the railway cat. Okay.
Those aren't real.
Yeah, they are. Read them and weep, my friend. I'm somewhat initiated because I went to see the Cats movie a couple years ago, and some of the names were very memorable. They stuck in my head. I was never a super fan of that musical, even though I did like musicals as a teen. But it was hugely popular.
They got to release the butthole cut of Joshua and the Promised Land.
Yeah, just like the Cats animated film, they really got to release the butthole cut of this.
I'll forever regret not seeing that opening week that it was out.
Yeah, that's the thing. You got to see movies right away nowadays because they can just like fucking change stuff after the fact. So
yeah,
basically every movie you see that you worry is going to be a disaster, you should basically just see it opening night to make sure the studio doesn't just decide to patch something in it.
Yeah, what the fuck? It's also like, how the fuck did you get to this point and not be like, people are going to laugh at this movie and we don't want them to?
And I think at that point, like,
people don't like our shitty Cats thing that had all these fuck ups in it when we released it? I thought they wouldn't notice when it was on a giant screen.
Yeah. I just think like patching culture has ruined so much. Like video games. What's that?
There's no magic anymore.
Yeah, right. I mean, video games, it just kind of makes sense because like, code in games is kind of alive and like, bugs can sort of develop over time or like, be discovered over time as much as you might do to try to prevent them. But a movie is like, don't patch a movie.
Yeah.
Like, come on.
No, that's the thing. I am, of course, somebody who thinks that great movies are always being made at all times. But yes. I think the sheer ratio of available movies being made is to good movies is actually lower than it was in the film era, because I think that it used to be like you only have so much film unless you're like Stanley Kubrick or something. And so like everybody has to be on the same page of like, oh, we got to do a good job on this take, and like everybody focuses on it.
Right.
Whereas like when it's digital and you're doing infinite takes, there's almost never a point where everybody is all focused on it. And now
totally
it's
agree.
to the point where like not even everybody in post has to be fully focused on it.
Yeah, you're so right. Like, hey, limitation breeds greatness. We all know this. Like, you know, people are not acting like their life depends on it because their life doesn't depend on it. Who cares?
Yeah.
No, and even their own sense of like what's good doesn't depend on it. So
Right. And
We should start recording our podcast on tape. So
Wow.
that's true.
we'd be so locked in.
Yes.
We'd start speaking like Shakespearean English.
Actually, we need to go the other way. We need a morning radio show so that we can get like really extra like meaningless about it, you know?
Yeah,
Oh,
we should
yeah.
talk
you got
for
like 6
Just like we're
hours
just
to fill.
talking.
we should talk for 4 hours a day.
We're gonna be talking, so as long as we're talking, we're talking.
It's crazy how much the skill of just being able to talk nonstop is like valued.
Yeah, it's always been very important. It's part of the radio industry.
Yeah.
Like, people can't abide by silence.
I mean, yeah,
That's the
you'll
service
just
that we're
like
selling.
people will just like believe an insane person just because they keep talking.
I know.
They'll be like, that guy must know what he's talking about.
It's
not stopping.
the service of filling silence is incredibly profoundly important,
Yeah.
and that's what we're selling. But you know what? I think that DIY film, even in the digital era, sort of circles back around to what Scott is saying, because like something like Joshua and the Promised Land, apparently it took director Jim Lyon 4 years to make this movie. And even though, you know, technically one has, with working with digital, an infinite amount of takes, you know, time to an extent, you know, even if you're working on just a personal computer.
Yeah.
But, you know, someone making, I'm assuming his first film, or just like a film that is just so much of a drain on the time and resources, like, you're just really trying, you know?
He's a perfectionist, and it shows in the
I
finished
think so.
product.
Yes,
think so.
and this is why very creative stuff, like concentrated creative stuff, still does get made, because that's the other end with having more means to make stuff. There are these people like Jim Lyon who focus everything they have to be able to make something that they would not have been able to like 2 years before that.
Yes. Yeah.
Where is he now? Is he dead?
Jim Lyon?
Jim Lyon?
He's in the
I
Promised
couldn't tell
Land.
you. I
He
really
made
could not tell you.
He has a movie called Freedom for Rehab. That's part of Joshua and the Promised Land. On the same YouTube account, it had like a 16-minute, apparently DVD extra.
Oh, I see.
He's a producer on a movie called The Summoned, which has a different title on its poster, Demon Lover.
Holy
Yes.
shit.
And
He
you know
made
what?
Demon Lover.
You know what was very disappointing? I had that movie in my queue, and when I looked it up, I was like, "Oh shit, this movie's in my queue on Tubi." And I went to Tubi, and it was gone now. As was The Good Demon Lover,
Oh, fuck.
because I added them both at the same time.
Well, The Good Demon Lover's on Criterion, isn't it?
Yeah, I did actually end up watching that on Criterion.
Wait,
so maybe The Summoned is.
he's
too.
also the producer of The Summoned.
Yes, aka
IMDb.
Demon Lover.
I'm just trying to find out what he's credited under the name Jim Lyon. Is it the same Jim Lyon?
Oh, now that's a good
I
question.
think it.
I want to be open to the fact that this might not be the same guy.
because this is a very Christian movie.
Yes.
Like it is just a
the
Bible story with furries, but in CGI.
Now, there is a photo, a very grainy photo of allegedly Jim Lyon on Google. I really don't know what to believe anymore.
It's a grainy photo of a lion in a gym.
No, no. There's a fucking. It's from a Twitter account, but named. I could not tell you if this is all the same person, so we have to scratch that. But we're just trying to dox Jim Lyon here. And the fact is, we don't know. IMDb might link his name with another movie, but we just simply we don't know.
He was listed as writer, director, animator of this movie, but the other producer on this was Aisha Lyon, who I assumed was his significant other. But
wow, really cool. Well, assuming that Joshua and the Promised Land, I mean, it's the only verified, work under this name. Maybe he worked on the Summoned, aka Demon Lover, up for debate. The TV tropes and YouTube community seem to have had some contact with this man. That guy, Saber Spark or whatever the fuck his name was, he apparently directed like a remake of this film, like a fan remake of this film.
It's like one of those projects where everybody animates like 5 seconds of it.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
and
looks like shit.
I'm sure it's bad. I'm sure it is actually bad, and it's by people who, in their heart, thought that they were like making it better.
They're paying tribute to it. The thing is I just don't. I think I don't like animation.
They're just fulfilling a nervous tick.
I agree.
It's not a good thing to do.
I agree.
You.
It's not for me. It's not that I don't like animation, but I just am mistrustful that anyone has as pure intentions about art as I do.
Yes.
I'm afflicted with the critical disease of not relating or trusting to the way anyone else feels about something other than myself and my friends.
Absolutely.
And I'm fine admitting that. But Julian, you think you're just simply not an animation fan.
I mean, I'm looking at some of this stuff and I just don't like the way the characters move. Now, it feels like there's like this way of animating cartoon characters where they're like really expressive in a way that I just find so fucking grating.
I know.
Very like musical theater-y. I don't know how to describe it. It's like very bouncy, very like, I don't know. There's just something that really irks me about the way everything.
Yeah. Well, it's
have you ever
just
seen
3D animation?
Have you ever seen Oswald the Octopus?
No.
Oh, it's like a show for toddlers. I watched this before my child was born.
I've seen this guy.
Never watched it with her. Yeah, but that's
good.
like really calming animation. It's really like simplistic.
See this I can get behind.
Yeah, sure.
But I don't want to see these fucking like somebody's like always, I don't even know what the fuck to describe this shit like.
Well, it's
you're not referring to Joshua and the Promised Land, though, right? That
had
good
some
animation.
Subtlety.
Yeah.
Well, I think the
thing
problem
is, I don't pay attention to any of this stuff, so I have no idea what the words to describe why it's like a character like
right. You don't have the
makes an
nomenclature
expression a certain way. Yeah.
The thing I think I'll say is that like, the problem, I guess you could say, with animation is that because it is a visual expression that is depicting reality, although in a very stylized way, it is very beholden to like trends in visual expression of its era, which feel to people very immersed in the world, like really up to date. But if you're not immersed in like the discipline, I just feel like it all looks dated from the start. Yeah. Like I look at a piece of contemporary animation, I'm like, that just looks so bad and like clearly from 2024, and I never want to think about it again.
Yeah, I also feel like a lot of amateur animation people like on YouTube, you know what? Follow your dreams, do whatever you want to do.
Of course,
it's no problem, but don't keep it away from me and my family. I feel like a lot of them are like of the age, and I'm no spring chicken over here. So they're like all like a generation younger than when I like stopped watching cartoons was when they were like very informed by children's cartoons, because a lot of it just looks like stuff where I'm just like, this looks like it's for babies.
Right.
Whereas like that style was probably like, is very like nostalgic for them.
Mm-hmm.
Like if I saw somebody do like a fan and like a new animation style that looked like the Simpsons, like classic Simpsons or whatever, I'd probably be like, oh, that's cool.
Sure. Yeah, of course. Yeah, we're beholden to things that catch our experience in the time. But you know, I will say, like, to its credit, maybe animation and comics, because of a point I made earlier, that like they rely on their simplicity and their like reduction of the complexity of human life to activate the imagination. It is possible for that kind of like nostalgia to take hold in you when you look at something like The Simpsons, for instance. You know, it's like, it does feel very like, you know, it feels like home base to you, and it can do that because it's sort of like, I don't know. The book Understanding Comics by Scott McCloud describes this phenomenon very well. Basically just talks about how like it's just so easy for the human mind to impress upon a simplistic cartoon character, and like for a cartoon character to create that like similarity with your own experience, you could still like, you could relate to one and mistrust another very strongly because it doesn't carry the same visual expression as the one you're used to.
Comic artists will write a whole fucking novel trying to explain why their 3-cell drawing of a gay skeleton is like important, is the most important thing in the world.
Yeah, totally.
And you're bad for not liking comics.
Yeah, again, not my home base medium. I can get it, you know. There's some really cool works that are being made. This is all, but what's funny though is we're dissing this medium in service of complimenting this movie.
That's because this is good, and when people actually try to do a good job, and when people do an objectively better job than this film did, it's disgusting.
Right.
You have to stumble ass backwards into art.
That's perpetually true in any medium, but especially for this one.
Yeah.
If you try to make something,
I want to see true creativity, and we saw that here.
It's also like this was in service of a message. This basically had a political agenda.
Yes.
And they accidentally made a work of art. Whereas like a lot of times, you know, people are just doing it because they're like, oh, I want to make something good, or I want to entertain people.
Right.
Or I want to express myself. I mean, that's why so much like naive art is like amazing naive art is like all about like spreading a religious message or something.
Right.
It's like you have a completely different agenda. You just like have no idea how the fuck to say it.
Would you call this naive art? Yeah. You think?
Yeah, I think so.
I think so.
Even though there's a lot of people involved in it
there's a lot of naive people in the world.
It turns out.
That are good.
There's a naive artist born every minute.
Should we describe a bit about the content of this film? So, you know, we've already talked quite a lot about our big picture feelings of it. The main depiction of this film is it's talking about the story of Joshua in the Bible. The most famous Joshua story that I always remember from being a kid in Sunday school, because I love the story, is, of course, Joshua and the walled city of Jericho, which ends up being the climax of this film. But how we get there, the movie is framed in such a way that we meet a young lion named Joshua, who he's like a little kid. You know, he's basically like a human kid, but he is a lion. And
a modern
parents,
young lion.
A modern young lion. And his parents, you know, they don't seem like bad parents, but they're just like in a pissy mood that day. We all remember this from our parents growing up, you know. They're just not, they're fighting with each other. They're not really paying attention to you, so you feel neglected. He goes to his room to get ready for dinner, and he ends up having a wonderful dream because a sort of spirit approaches him called the best friend. and the best friend is named Chris. And
He said some really long name as a joke,
right,
but his name is just Chris.
right.
Never. He's just a little white ghost guy named Chris. There's no connection
like
to the Bible. There's no.
He
He's like a
reminded
dog
me
made out of TV static.
Yes, he reminded me of this character called Glitch from the movie Andy and the Airwave Rangers, which is another like weird kids movie. That's where you're like, why do I trust this individual?
Yeah, I was getting Great Gazoo vibes.
Ooh,
Just
yeah.
like a fucking guy just flying around you, telling you what to do.
Mm-hmm.
And saying to you, hey, you can trust me.
Yeah.
Listen, Joshua, I came here to take you on a little kind of trip, you know? It's your choice if you want to go or not, but I really think you should consider it.
Where do you want to take me?
I can't tell you that till we get there.
I don't know. My mom will get mad if I'm late for dinner.
Hey, I promise that I will have you back in time for dinner.
I don't know.
Come on. You trust me, don't you?
I guess.
You trust the guy who sent me, don't you?
Also, somebody in the comments of this video pointed this out, so props to them. But it's really funny how he starts by saying, "You'll be back in time for dinner." Yeah, you'll be back in time for dinner. And then at the very end of the movie, he's like, "You're late for dinner, but that's not my fault."
Yeah.
Fucking liar.
He's a bit of a trickster,
Yeah.
this best friend, Chris. And I think that's sort of supposed to be the humor of this film, but because the film has a very impenetrable tone, it just reads as like a narrative statement.
Yeah.
I think that's sort of supposed to be a joke.
It did terrify me for my own child that somebody just came in and was like, I'm the best friend. You can trust me. God sent me. And then they're like, okay, I guess. Will I be back in time so that my parents will get mad? Is basically what he's asking. And they're like, yeah, sure.
If it's a little floating white guy, I guess you kind of just got to believe him.
Yeah. Fair enough.
If it's like a grown man in a hospital gown, then yeah, that's cause for concern. But
I just realized this
floating
is
and transparent.
This is JD Vance to Donald Trump.
Yeah.
He's the little floating white guy who
my name's
tells him what to
JD.
do.
I'll have
I'm
you
the
home
best
for
friend.
dinner time. I'll have you in Mar-a-Lago for dinner time.
Melania won't get mad. Here's one of the first notes I took about the film. Animation is good, and I like the tone and pacing.
Wow. Oh, for this movie.
Of this movie.
I was going to say, that flies in the face of everything I just said about animation.
Yeah, I mean, the animation of this film is good, and I like the tone and pacing. I just wonder if are people going to log into this review expecting us to say that the animation of this movie is bad. I don't think so. I liked watching it.
I found it charming.
Yeah.
I found it very charming. No, I think our very cultured listeners will sort of expect that review from us if they've seen this, because it is a really charming and honestly kind of comfortable watch. We watch a lot of movies for our show, and I'm just used to this by now. I don't even like bat an eye anymore, but a lot of the stuff we watch for the show makes me feel uncomfortable, antsy, bored, sad.
Yeah.
And I did not feel that way watching this. I felt like, okay, this is comfortable. This is intriguing.
Yeah.
No, it's not the most like exciting thing I've ever seen, but like I was intrigued. I was delighted by it. And that goes a long way.
I found the voiceovers as quote unquote bad as they were to be like very relaxing.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was going to say the uncanniness was almost ambient, if you will, like in a ambient feeling.
As you can see, Joshua feels kind of lost in the shuffle, and he doesn't know where to turn. That's why I think we should give him a little help.
I wrote in my notes that I thought that the animation of this film it really, because, the whole film, the central premise of it is that it's like a child's daydream or a child's dream. And I think that the animation really kind of embodied that in a way that was satisfying. And also, here's really one of the biggest compliments I can give the film. It's that I actually think that the way it depicted the Bible was, especially the Old Testament, was one of the best ways that you could to sort of like preserve the awe and mystery around the story, because to just depict the story in this very matter-of-fact, almost like scientific way as it's presented in the Bible, but to do so with these like weird 3D generated assets of like red sheep and like blue lions and like a triangle demon that's on fire flying around, it really preserved like the wonder and terrifyingness of the Old Testament.
Yeah.
In a way that I felt like very accurate to the way the story is told. Like when you read the Old Testament, it's just like a matter-of-fact sentences collected together that was like, and then there was a city full of giants, and then they blew a horn and then the walls came crashing down.
Yeah.
Like, and then this happened. Like, that's just how the Bible is written.
Like the scene where he goes into Jericho and sees them all in a crowd watching something, and he just like walks away like nothing happened. And they're like, Chris is like, were they doing anything evil in there? And he's like, they sacrificed a baby. It's just like so matter of fact. And then I like went back and watched it. I'm like, man, that's like kind of horrifying.
So
just
horrifying.
to be treated so like blasé.
Yeah, I believe we might have to put this audio clip in, but I believe Joshua goes, they killed a baby.
Hi, kid.
Hi, Chris.
Hey, kid. I'm not a genius, you know, but even I can tell something's wrong. What's bugging you?
Moses said God promised the land to our ancestor Abraham, and that we have to scout it out now so we can plan our invasion. But we can't take over the land without getting rid of the people who are already here.
Oh, boy. Okay, this is going to take some quick thinking. Hey, Josh, when you were scouting Jericho, did you see anything weird?
What do you mean?
Like evil, bad, weird.
Yeah,
What did you see?
they killed a baby.
Aha! Ritual sacrifice. Don't you see? These people are doing things detestable to God. They murder, they steal, they commit adultery.
What's that?
Which is so scary. Yeah, it shows, like, we can't tell, like, the 3D assets are so like primitive that it's hard to even read their expression.
Yeah.
So it's like, yeah, Joshua walks into Jericho as a spy. He watches what the crowd is watching, and then the camera like focuses on him, and it kind of looks like he like is smiling ear to ear.
Yeah.
But it might have been trying to be him grimacing or something.
Yeah.
But it really just looks like he breaks out into a wide, like, evil smile. And
This
he goes
is-
away and he's like, they killed a baby.
We've lost the charm of 3D animation.
Right.
That comes with this. Everything now is like trying to be as realistic as possible. It's like, I
Right.
don't go to the fucking movies. I don't go to watch a cartoon to be like, ooh, it's so real.
Right.
I'd go look at myself in the mirror if I wanted that.
Right. Yeah. If I wanted to finally speak
Right.
to a real MF, I would just talk to myself. You know? But yeah, well, and I think again that sort of goes back to this sort of like landing in the right part of Uncanny Valley, which you can kind of only do by accident. It's like this movie does it, and yes, so many cartoon things nowadays. It's like they've gotten so the palette of expression available to them is so varied that it's just like uninteresting.
Mm-hmm.
I think everyone would do well to take a step back.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did find myself
That's how I
like
feel.
I was like anticipating what Joshua was gonna feel because his facial expressions were so limited. And he did have that weird
Yeah.
smile, and the difference between the smile and like the sad frown were so subtle.
Right. and it's pretty much just because like I don't really know how how CGI works, but I know that you have the assets and you have to like adjust their expressions and poses like by hand, and the asset was probably just so inflexible that it was like very difficult to make it smile or frown.
Yeah.
Pretty cool. Joshua's story begins with the story of Moses. The best friend Chris wants to allow him to experience the Bible stories he knows. So he sends him back to basically the point in the story of Moses after the Israelites have been freed from their enslavement by the Pharaoh.
Yes.
And we sort of go from there through the story of Moses, Moses and the Israelites wandering through the desert.
Yeah.
And to the point in biblical history where, if I'm not mistaken, I believe Joshua kind of takes over from Moses.
He just steps to the sidelines and his job is to hold his hands up.
That's a pretty funny story.
Is that true?
I mean,
I forgot about that one.
Is it in the Bible?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's a very Old Testament type shit. The Old Testament is so goofy. It's like, and then God told Moses that they would win the battle as long as he like held his arms up. But then he got tired, so he put his arms down, and like 10,000 people died.
Yeah.
The trick to winning this battle was for Moses to keep his hands up in the air so they would know God was on their side. But eventually Moses got tired. Who wouldn't?
That's like everything in the Bible. Yeah. Joshua was, Moses was like his mentor, and Moses was like prepping him for leading the Israelites.
It was fun. This all happened before dinner time. Also, Joshua, it was really funny when Moses parted the sea, and I had like never thought of this, but like Joshua he's like stops and is like looking at it like the parted sea, and then he crawls in halfway.
And a hammerhead shark comes after him.
Yeah. And he backs out of it real fast. So it was pretty silly.
Those MFs were doing that. You're not walking through the parted sea and not sticking your hand in the water. At least running your fingers along the side.
Of course.
Grab a fish.
Grabbing a little bit of seaweed. Yes, fish. Hey, we're eating tonight.
Absolutely. Here's some funny moments from the narrator
The narrator who is different from Chris, as we stated earlier.
Oh, wait.
Yes.
You know what? I didn't even really process that.
The narrator was a purple lion who just was the narrator. And then there was Chris, who was the little ghost guy, who was also a lion.
Static ghost. Yeah.
I guess I noticed that, but I didn't really think about it.
Chris floats around within the real space, but arguably not everybody can see him, while the purple narrator floats around over the space, which they emphasize by him having a shadow on the screen.
Yeah.
Which is very
that was
strange
really cool.
choice. Yeah.
The narrator says he's talking about the Israelites being sent manna from heaven.
Yes.
He says manna is like a cookie, except it's good for you.
The quail didn't last long, so God also gave them something called manna. It's like a cookie, only it's really good for you. Joshua likes it.
I looked that up because I was like, what even is manna? And couldn't really get a definitive answer. It's some sort of fungus or something from a bug.
Oh,
what?
What?
Yeah, it was pretty.
God wanted them to eat the
theories.
No, it's like a
some
cookie,
weird
but good for
dust
you.
thing.
Oh,
Well, you can bake it into. Apparently, they would bake it into cakes somehow. I don't really understand this, but
I'm looking
interesting.
this up and
yeah.
and I almost just said Jesus is correct instead of Julian is correct.
I like the sound of that.
And Julian is correct. They describe that it could have been a sort of bread formed with oil or honey that was maybe from insects in a tree.
Yeah, it's like some kind of thing they would just wake up in the morning and it would be It would be on everything.
Interesting.
Other researchers have thought that maybe it was like a lichen.
Yeah.
Which
A lot of theories. Pretty crazy. Yeah, the Bible's just like, yeah, it's just a food that's open for interpretation.
Mm-hmm.
Uh-huh.
We just needed a food here. Everything in the Old Testament, I feel like that God was still just workshopping.
Yes.
Yeah, well,
Very first draft. He's going to go
Right.
back and get some notes and
it's like various different drafts put together.
yeah.
Here's an interesting Wikipedia summary on manna. In the description in the book of Exodus, manna is described as being a fine flake-like thing, like the frost on the ground.
Mm.
It is described as arriving with the dew during the night. It had to be collected before it was melted by the heat of the sun, and that it was like a coriander seed in size, but white in color. It could be pounded into cakes, which were then baked, and it tasted like a cake baked with oil. It tasted like wafers that had been made with honey.
Damn.
So
These guys lived off like 30 calories a day.
I know,
Isn't that crazy?
but it was like just basically an oily, sugary, white substance.
I think I would rather be a slave.
Well, it's funny you say that because like that's sort of what the Israelites said in the Bible at some
Yeah.
points. A line from the narrator. These people love to complain.
Yeah, I read that.
They have enough food but no water. They want to go back to being slaves again.
These guys just love to complain. Sure, they had enough food, but they didn't have enough water. So they told Moses to solve the problem, or they all go back to Egypt to become slaves again.
He said these people. He's talking about Jewish
The Jews.
slaves. Yeah, he's talking about the Jews. He says these guys just love to complain.
He's saying
They're asking for water. They've been wandering the desert for years, led by a fucking guy who's like the former fucking prince or whatever.
Yeah.
Is like, I have all the answers, don't worry. And he leads them into the fucking desert. And they're like, so you have all the answers. Where's the water? And the narrator's like, listen to these fucking Jews
Yeah.
complaining.
Blah, blah, blah. You're worse than
I
my
always
wife.
want more.
I do enjoy the narrator's tone. He's very, very dismissive of the concerns. But, that's something about the Bible. Like, I think about, going to church, going to Sunday school as a kid. Like, basically the purpose of Sunday school would be like your Sunday school teacher would read you the Bible story and would be like, imagine how the Israelites must have felt wandering for years. Because when you read the Bible as a kid, it's just like, and then they wandered for 40 years, and then
Yeah.
Moses died, and then Joshua was there.
Yeah.
40
Like-
years is one sentence.
Yeah, absolutely. That it happens all the time, especially in the New Testament. It's covering so much ground that in every sentence, something happens that is like bizarre and shocking.
Yeah.
But, it's not like current animation that let's show Mario having a panic attack for 15 minutes. No.
Use your imagination.
Exactly. You have to imagine Mario having a panic attack, which I frequently do when I'm feeling stressed.
Repeatedly for 40 years.
Yeah. But yeah, basically the purpose of teaching Sunday school is to tell a little kid, like, imagine how this would have felt, because the Bible doesn't really do a good job of that. So, the narrator's just like, they were yapping, they were complaining, but Joshua, he's there, he's watching this, and he has to be home in time for dinner. He waits for Moses for 40 days and 40 nights. Joshua does. And the narrator says, like, poor guy, I would have liked to bring him a book or something.
I love the narrator.
The narrator's
I
great.
love everybody in this movie. Chris at one point says, sometimes a no means maybe, but when it comes from God, no means no.
He's right. Like, what is he even referring to?
Really?
I mean, that sentence takes on very different meanings when you're a child watching this movie and
Of course.
That's true.
an adult.
And like, I don't
When
have my
you're-
mind in the gutter, but I just don't even know what he is possibly referring to.
Yeah.
He says it just like in such a again matter of fact way that
Yeah.
when does a no, like, again, excusing the like adult meaning of the term, when does a no mean maybe?
I guess if you bother your mom enough for a PS2,
Right.
you'll get it.
Yeah.
She says no, and then
Or
she buys
get
it for you one
an
day
extra
or
cookie
whatever.
or something.
Get some
Right.
extra mana from heaven. No means no. Now you want water. I chose the wrong people.
Some of the coolest parts of the film, I think, were, after I really like seeing God teach Moses the 10 Commandments.
Yeah,
That was really cool.
badass.
I think it captured, the shock of that moment.
We got to see the golden calf.
Oh, we got to
Which we're
see
very
our
familiar
beautiful
with.
golden calf.
It was like
Don't
a
we
golden
love our
calf
beautiful golden
rave.
calf?
Everybody was dancing.
That's sort of how I picture the golden calf. That's always been one of my favorite stories in the Bible. We all know this. Everyone listening might remember early Boys Bible Study when we did our golden calf drama series, which I would love to do again. But y'all, I was unemployed at the time.
Yeah.
So I got to do
We
things.
got to
like,
get back to that.
we got to get
Yeah.
unemployed.
Yeah.
We all have jobs now. It's crazy. For the past couple years, we've all been employed. I remember I feel like the first 3 years of this podcast, we each took turns being like chronically unemployed. I mean, granted, it was COVID and everything, but still.
Remember COVID? I mean,
Yeah.
people died, but we had so much fun.
I know.
Life was so simple for like 3 years.
I know.
All you had to do was just not go outside.
You had
And
to
even
not
then,
go
you
outside,
could still go outside.
and then once a week, you had to fill out a questionnaire saying, "Yes, I filled out a resume," and then President Donald Trump personally Venmo'd you, $1,000.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
He's going to
was
do it
pretty
again.
cool.
It's going to be
He's gonna
great.
do it again. God bless him. And that was what it was like for a while. It was sort of like manna from heaven,
It really was.
you know?
It was like a cookie. That was good for you.
And you got to make a podcast with your friends. But, the movie, after spending some time with Moses, the golden calf, the 10 Commandments, classic Moses moments, Joshua, who becomes, the biblical character of Joshua. The movie, it makes this clear that maybe the biblical character of Joshua is actually a time-traveling little boy from the future.
Yeah.
Yeah. Was this a dream? Was it? Because he was impacting in serious ways some very important historical
That's
moments.
true. It's like Assassin 33 AD, except he's
Yeah.
like setting up what actually happened in the Bible instead of like an alternate version.
Yeah.
You're
And he
so right.
he got to go simply because he wanted to get out of the house for a little bit.
Yeah.
Sometimes that's all it takes. The greatest adventures start with the first one
Boredom.
step.
Yep.
Yeah. Boredom.
Yeah.
Climbing
And
Mount
boredom.
Everest, discovering the new world, hiking across the Bering Straits, the
Destroying
land
the new
bridge,
world.
Yep.
Oh.
destroying the new world.
Mm-hmm.
These were all things that were done out of boredom.
Yep.
And I think that's a really important lesson. You need to be bored to be great.
And there's no going back.
Right.
It's unless you're late for dinner.
To which I say, call me anything you want. But don't you dare call me late for dinner.
Joshua leads the Israeli invasion of Jericho.
Yes.
And no, you're not watching the news. Unfortunately, we've been here before. That made me very depressed to think about how just to do this. Just fucking give up.
It was weird in this.
I'm not going to say
in this
which side I'm
context.
saying that about because I don't want to get death threats.
It it was strange in this context to be watching it. And part of the thing is like they get to the promised land and they're like, God, here's the thing. A bunch of people live in the promised land, it turns out. And then one person comes back and is like, oh, here's the thing. God told me that all the people are bad. So they got to go anyway. And they're like, oh,
so
perfect.
fucked up.
No more questions.
It was so depressing that Joshua left Jericho And granted, in this movie, he sees them sacrificing a baby.
Supposedly, we just see his face.
Unlike civilized Western cultures who send their children when they turn 18 to go die in other countries.
Sure.
It was sad because he runs into Chris outside of Jericho, and Chris is like, "What's wrong?" And Joshua says, "Well, I'm at the Promised Land, but there's people there." And it's like, it almost felt like he understood already that, like, if they were to move into the Promised Land, they were going to have to kill these people, and he wasn't expecting there to be anybody there. And so Chris is like, "Well, did you see them do anything evil?" Like, literally manufacturing consent. So sad. No discussion of, maybe we should find another Promised Land, or maybe we should figure out a way to coexist.
Maybe any land can be the Promised Land if you feel at home there.
Yeah.
That's what I would have told the Israelites.
Yeah.
But no.
The Promised Land is where the heart is.
Or God could have just, God could always just be like, you know what, Earth's a pretty big place.
They had wandered
statistically
for 40
very
years.
unlikely that you are gonna be able to, like, that you start here and you're just like right next to the Promised Land.
But I think, they were just getting kind of impatient. They had wandered for 40 years.
It had been 40 years.
They found the first place with infrastructure, and they were like, "Oh, what a coincidence. This is the Promised Land." And look, they have all these homes and farmlands built here already.
And they're bad because one of Noah's sons saw Noah naked. So
to be fair, that was kind of sus. He shouldn't have done that.
That's true, yeah.
Pause.
That's the shortest sentence in the Bible. Pause.
Yeah. Noah's son saw him naked. Pause. I'm trying to find the book in the Bible where it says that the people in Jericho were like giants. Did you catch that in this movie?
that some of them were like
something about
giants.
that.
Yeah.
I don't remember that.
I remember that in the Bible. I did not remember that pertaining to Jericho, but to be fair, I hadn't read that story or heard that story in a long time.
It's funny because it's just like, it's like going to another country and people are just on average taller than you. And but back then they had to be like, it was a land of giants. They were 5'10".
They could have hooped. I'm looking to see if they were giants, but no.
If they were giants in the land.
Were they giants in the land? I do see there's the story of this prostitute called Rahab. That must have been the deleted scene.
Oh.
She hid the spies.
Right.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I actually read that
How could I
story
forget?
recently.
She hid the spies.
That was a deleted scene from this movie.
Yes, it was. She hid the spies in her pussy. Just a little humor for
Where
you.
is the application for that job?
Actually, I did actually read a pretty good graphic novel recently that was just different stories of women in the Bible who had salacious jobs that ended up being like lifted up and praised by the end.
Oh, that's interesting.
But she was one of them because she was a prostitute before that.
Wow.
Whoa. You know that the Israelis were stationed in an encampment outside of Jericho called Shittim?
No.
Yeah.
That's so amazing.
They sent 2 spies from Shittim.
Wow.
I hear, though, the women of Shittim are beautiful.
And then the angels brought the walls down with their big hammers.
Yes, they did, with their mighty hammers. As a little kid, you love the story of Jericho. It's so cool. It's like, God is like, you need to blow your horn. You need to like walk around the city 7 times.
Mm-hmm.
And then the walls will just fall down. Like, that's awesome.
Yeah.
It's just cool. So I always was very fascinated by that story as a kid. And I could totally understand why the young Joshua, if your demonic best friend said he could show you any story in the Bible, why not Jericho? Seems like a pretty good one. I get it. I really do.
He was kind of turned into a Zionist patsy.
Why did he show him that story? I forget how it ended, because I remember right before Joshua gets home, his parents are like arguing again. But then Joshua, he does come home, and then he solves
I don't believe there's any reason for this story.
No, he fights a floating demon lion head in his bedroom.
Oh, right.
And he goes, and his parents are fighting at the dinner table, and he sits down and just looks at them, and their hearts melt. And the mom apologizes for being short with him, and he says, "It's okay, Mom, I forgive you." As if like the lesson he learned was forgiveness.
I think the lesson he learned was
he committed like genocide. I don't think there was any forgiving happening in any of this movie.
We didn't say grace yet. Joshua's not even here. Please stop.
I don't care about grace right now. I'm hungry.
I'm sick of this. First it's the car, now it's dinner.
Wine.
Joshua, sit down. I'm sorry I yelled at you, honey.
It's okay. I forgive you.
Darling?
Yes, dear?
I'm sorry I yelled at you. I'll try to spend some more time with you. With both of you.
I think literally he just learned the lesson it was tougher to be in Bible times, so just be happy.
I just lived 40 years, Mom.
Yeah.
He was basically trapped in that Junji Ito story about the guy who lives 100 years every time he goes to sleep. His dreams last for hundreds and thousands of years.
Oh my God, I don't know that story. That's crazy.
It's pretty fucking scary.
That guy's sick.
Are they good dreams?
Well, one of the scarier ones that I remember from reading this was the guy says it's at a sleep institute, a sleep study institute. And this guy looks more and more twisted because every night he sleeps, his dreams get a little bit exponentially longer. And he said he had a dream that lasted 500 years where he had to pee the whole time. He couldn't go.
Damn.
And so every day he wakes up and he's lived centuries.
Yeah.
I gotta piss right now.
Bad news, buddy. You're in the 500-year dream.
No.
And you're podcasting for 500 years. I just woke up from the greatest dream. I recorded a 1,000-year podcast episode.
And I had to pee the whole time. It was amazing.
Yeah.
Should we rate this very unique, singular, interesting DIY animated film, Joshua and the Promised Land? What do we rate?
Yeah.
I am going to rate this amazing, new to me animated movie 40 out of 40 years in my 8-hour day before dinner. It was great. I think I most recently came across this because it was in a weird CGI movies list or weird animation. And glad I did, because we should have watched this years ago. Incredible stuff. Really enjoyed it. But I feel like it's good that I saw it now. Now was actually the best time to see it, even though I would have enjoyed it a long time ago as well. Because God reveals things in due time. Sometimes it's 40 minutes, sometimes it's 40 years.
You know, they say, when is the best time to start watching Joshua and the Promised Land? The answer is always now.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to give this, 7 out of 7 horns of Jericho. Is that right?
There was probably a bunch of 7s in the story.
Yeah.
They probably had to blow the horn 7 times and like walk around the city 7 times.
7 times, yeah. Yeah, this was awesome. It was very relaxing, very cozy. We like to say now. Cozy. I love cozy 3D animation. I like to play my cozy game while I watch cozy animation.
Yeah, I agree. It was funny how just completely otherworldly alien the animation was, but it also was just so like cozy and familiar.
Yeah.
Like that was what this movie accomplished that I don't know if I'll ever see another animated film accomplish. It's just like managed to look so weird and just feel so.
I'm not going to watch another animated film, period.
No.
I'm done with that shit.
I like the real thing.
Yeah.
Well, I really enjoyed this movie. I thought it was so colorful, fun to watch. Made me feel good. Uplifted me. And the bizarre voice acting, narrative choices, tortured animated style, these all contributed to the unique ambiance. So I really, really genuinely like this film. Gonna have to give it 1 out of 1 sacrificed baby. It was evil, but it needed to happen.
Some would say he's the luckiest one out of all of us.
Yeah, would any of us trade places with him at this moment? I think not. I think not. Or I think so, whatever. Also, and I mean, I think this film has got to have the Golden Calf Award for depicting the golden calf.
Yeah.
How many movies have we actually watched on Boys Bible Study that show the golden calf?
Especially like breaking it down and melting the gold and making people drink it. That was fucked up.
Yes.
Man.
Thank you
I mean,
for
you
bringing
only
that
have.
First, Moses broke the idol and hammered it down into dust. Then he poured the dust into a barrel of hot water. Finally, he made all the people who broke the law drink the water. Yuck.
You only have so many people following you in the desert. Like, I don't think you can afford. I mean, obviously you could, but I don't think you can afford to make them drink molten lead.
I did not remember that part of the story, and I still don't.
An insurrection.
A
lot of these things, they like, you know, I don't know. I guess it's just part of growing up, but it's like I feel like that's bad leadership, and he just like Moses just kind of lucked into finding the promised land, or just fucking like we were saying, just got to the fucking next city and was like, oh my god, I can't take this anymore. This is the promised land.
Did he luck into it? I mean, 40 years. Like that does not sound like luck.
That was a punishment.
Hey, they didn't have Google Maps back then. I'd be lucky to find my way fucking home tonight in 40 years if I didn't have Google Maps.
Well, fair enough.
Yeah, fair enough. I'm pretty sure that the wandering was a punishment. It was a punishment for their disobedience and their lack of faith.
Oh.
And in the film, in Joshua and the Promised Land, it talks about how Moses was punished because he was angry and he hit a rock.
Yeah, it's crazy how they say all this shit after the fact.
Yeah, he hit the rock with his staff to get water instead of yelling at it to get water.
Then one day Moses disobeyed God. It was a small thing, really. He was angry and he hit this rock with his staff twice. God had told him to call forth water from the rock with his voice, not to hit it with his staff. So even Moses was condemned to die in the desert.
So guy
Wasn't he told to hit it with his staff earlier?
I don't know.
Here's the thing. It's like God. he puts water in the rocks and fills the desert with them. And then he gets mad at you for trying to get the water out of the rocks. It doesn't tell you until afterward. At least with the Garden of Eden, he was like, don't eat the apple. But everything after that, it's just like, it feels like he's just making it up or she is just making it up as they go along.
Well,
we loved this movie. That's all I could say. What a film.
It was awesome.
Thank you very much to all of our faithful listeners who have wandered with us for 40 years and more. But if it's your first time here, go to boysbiblestudy.com to hear all of our free episodes and our Patreon. If you want bonus Boys Bible Study content every single week, check out patreon.com/boysbiblestudy. Special thanks to our patron saints, very generous subscribers, Nicole, Marissa, Jeff, Rhett, and Mark. And our outro song is Oh My God by Mary. So from all of us here at Boys Bible Study, myself, Ash, my co-hosts, Julian and Scott, we would like to say, peace be with you.
And also with you. My name's Chris.
Forgive me, Father, for I have sinned. I feel your love in me, it's coming from within. Oh my God, my devotion is so unwavering. Divine emotions when you enter me.